Good morning, girlfriends. How are you? We are here today with Carolyn McGee, and we are going to have a brave conversation. So, girls, grab your pen and your notepad because we're going to be walking through her resource in the Being Brave Tour magazine. And so you can download that for free, and we'll be putting all the links in the comments for you. And just you can download it. We've got a PDF. So if you want to subscribe to new issues, you can do that. And then come along and follow us here on our Being Brave Tour podcast, where you can have the conversation with the person who wrote the resource, and she'll help walk you through it. And I am really loving this, Carolyn, because it gives us some kind of insight into this little reflection, this resource. You've kind of given us some little education around discernment and about thinking and about that discerning that logic and that intuition and bringing that together. And so I have, as we walk through some of these stories pop up. Stories in our life pop up where we can relate. This little worksheet, which, only takes a few minutes, but it made me sit and think, Carolyn, how I approach life and decision making. And so I'm so thankful that you brought this to our attention. And that, of course, is one of the things, too, is bringing it to your awareness.
Absolutely is.
Yeah, so welcome. Good to have you here. So just give us a little background on you. Tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to be where you are today.
Thanks. So my name is Carolyn McGee, and I am a discernment mentor. And what I mean by that is I help people make decisions. Mm-hmm. We make 35,000 decisions every day. 1,000, not 100. You think about it, it's like, what are you going to wear? How are you going to show up? What food are you going to eat? Are you going to say yes to an invitation? Are you going to set a boundary? Millions, or not millions, obviously thousands of decisions that we make. And some of them are very easy. They just flow, they're natural. And some of them we really need to pay attention. And that's where the discernment comes in. It's in the big ones. It's in the life-changing ones. Do you stay? Do you go? Do you create a partnership? And, it impacts more than just us. Because oftentimes, if you say no to a situation, you're allowing an opportunity for somebody else to rise up. So there's all of these impacts.
Well, that's an interesting thought there, too, that how it affects other people, too, when you start making discerning decisions. When I was walking through a really tough time, one of my prayers that I would say to myself is help me to make discerning decisions, to tap into that wisdom and to not be reacting and to pause and all these things. But now you've given us a framework.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just taking that moment, that pause. All of my work is based on, we have three intuition points or decision-making points in our body. We have our head, which of course has all the logic in it. And we also have two intuitive centers there. We have what we see in our environment and our dreams and what we hear. We also have our hearts, what we sense in the world around us, and also in our bodies. Does it feel good or does it make you want to pull back? There's a decision-making tip right there. And then our gut, what do you know? What do you feel to be right in your body? And as we balance these and keep them open, we're just more in flow. We've got all of the information.
Yeah. And I know when I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I always was told, oh, you're too sensitive. And so, yes, I was coming a lot of times from one area of making a decision in my heart or my gut. I'm like, being over. So seeing something in a different in like one perspective versus all three, and having that balance that you're talking about. And actually, this is something I've been really striving over the years as I kind of walked through those challenges and things became, it's like, I don't have a very big perspective. My perspective was really narrow. And like I said, I was coming from that place of, sensitivity, if you will, and to try to balance that out. It can be done, but you need someone almost to help walk you through this. So give us some more description of how we kind of approach this.
So it's a lot of it is just understanding. It's, our bodies are so complex, beautifully complex.
Yeah.
And we actually have a nerve. So this is science that called the vagus nerve that runs from our head all the way down into our digestive system. And it sends information in both directions. And if there's a block, for whatever reason, say you've got something going on in your lungs, I've got a little bit of a cough right now. So I have to be extra aware that there may be a slowdown coming through my heart with information because there's a little congestion there.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
It's something you wouldn't, and unless somebody explains it to you, or somebody who has experienced it walks you through it, you may not be aware of it. It's the same thing when you get a head cold. You're just not as clear, or maybe you've got a headache, or you got a little digestive thing happening. We're just not moving the energy as clearly as we could be to help support us in that decision making. And that's when you want to slow down and you want to breathe and you want to be consciously aware of moving that. I call it breathing all the way down to your toes.
Oh.
So you just imagine, you're taking the breath in through the head and you're breathing the energy all the way down so you're completely connected to the earth, whatever version of the earth is underneath your feet. And then as you release it, you're also reconnecting all the way back up. And it just opens up the energy flow so that you can feel it. You can see better what's around you, that clairvoyant stuff. You can hear those messages, often comes in music. You can feel it in your heart better. You can feel it in your gut. Right. And then you can be connected. That's what it's all about, Karen.
Yeah. And being aware of that, first of all, I love how you said that, kind of breathing all the way down to your toes. And if you can hear my voice, yes, I've got a little congestion going, and I have been saying my head is in the clouds, and so I'm purposely not making any really big decisions right now, because I thought, what? My head's a little fuzzy. I don't have the total capacity to make a really good decision. And so becoming aware of that, knowing when to pause. But here's one that I almost had to laugh at, because one of your second points was when flow comes when you stop overthinking. How many women out there overthink and you swirl on the thought, whether it's anxiety that's catching that or whatever? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would love to. That was one of my trigger points in the past. Yeah, it was one that I had to spend some time on in order to get clear with that. I would often wake up in the middle of the night having a dream or a nightmare about a decision that I'd made, or second guessing myself.
Yes.
And it happens to all of us, there at some point in time. But it's when it becomes overwhelming or becomes part of the process instead of really making the decision. That's what it is. You relax, you feel 100% confident in the decision, and then you're in flow. You're not going back to think about it again. You're not second guessing. You're not waking up in the middle of the night. You feel very firm and confident in that choice. Now, something may happen in the future that changes that choice, but with 100% confidence in your body that it's the right choice at this moment, and you take that next right step.
Yes. And then owning that. So I did have an experience with that. So when I was walking through those transitions in my life, that were all really big transitions. I had to make some decisions like, what kind of car am I going to have? Because, it was time to switch cars, and what was I going to buy? And people were chiming in on me saying, oh, you shouldn't spend that much money. You should do this. You should do that, telling me what I should do. And I finally stepped back. And like you said, I kind of went, okay, what's the logic? I had done all my homework, kind of got to all the facts, educated myself, and then listened. And then I actually, when I made this decision, that was one of the first decisions that I really stood in, that I owned. That I bought this car, and I thought, whether it's the right decision, the wrong decision, it was mine.
Right.
And so I thought, I've done my homework. I've listened. I've stepped back. I didn't rush into it. I didn't overthink it. And it felt good because it was my decision. And so then I stood like in that confidence that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always do that.
Oh, it's a start. And one of the things that I love to tell people to do is journal. Like, there's journaling prompts in this resource, and, just to write down your thoughts. And, I've got an engineering management background, so I do bullet points. I don't write big things down. But it's easy, and it helps me remember. And you're proving yourself right.
Yes.
You've got the data, right?
Yes. Okay, let's say that. Proving yourself right. I love it.
Yeah. And then you've got it. Or maybe you've got bits and pieces of a puzzle. It's like you get a bit of insight here, or you get a message there, or you learn something, or somebody says something. You put it all together, and all of a sudden you've got this beautiful picture, and it becomes clear what your next right step is.
Yeah.
If you're not paying attention to all those little bits and pieces, then you are missing a piece of the puzzle. And I talk a lot about intuition because people skip over it sometimes, or they don't use it, or they invalidate it, but you still have to have the logic. You still have to, to have the whole picture. You need to have the balance between them. And that's what it's all about.
Yes. And, intuition, I think, is a lot of women use their intuition, or have that more than some men do. So if that's our feminine power, but in balance, like you said, where it's not, that intuition isn't overtaking, because I have seen some people who make decisions just from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk a little bit too about how the body speaks. How should we be listening to our body? What does that look like when you're making a decision? How does that sometimes show up?
Oftentimes for me, it's my heart. It's my heart and my gut.
Yeah.
And it'll either feel safe or constricted. It'll feel joyful or tight. So there'll be like a sense of peace. When things are good for me, when I am in flow, when the information I've been pulling together is accurate, I feel my heart is very expansive, almost like I'm an angel with wings. So, I'm open. And if it's a no, or I need more information, sometimes it's a yes with the timing isn't right, or it's a yes, but you need a little bit more information to fully understand what you're committing to. And if that happens, then I want to hug my heart. I want to protect it. So there's this sensation, and people will feel it in their head, sometimes in their guts. But, for me and a lot of my clients, it's through the chest, or chills.
Yeah.
Chills or warmth on your skin. Is a yes or a no, or a good or not so good. Because I don't think there's bad things in decisions. It's actually the only bad decision is not making one.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And, you talk too about capacity shapes discernment.
Yeah.
I finally learned that word, capacity, walking through a different situation that was very, very full of emotion. And I did not have the capacity to have certain conversations, or make certain decisions. And it was difficult because other people who I said that to did not understand, and did not honor my choice of saying, I don't have the capacity for this. And so sometimes, even though we make the right decision for us, others don't understand. And so that's, one of the consequences, or the result of standing in our own, and standing our ground. And that was a new experience. I thought, not only am I here to make that decision, I also have to understand with that balanced self, the repercussions or the results that might come from those decisions.
Yes, absolutely. And I'd invite you to just take a look back when you have an opportunity to, and see who rose up to step in, who had the opportunity
Yeah,
because you said no. You honored yourself.
I did.
You honored yourself. So someone else got an opportunity that they would not have.
Mm.
And it's always there. It's sometimes really buried, but you'll see it. And sometimes it takes a little while too to shift. You know, I had an experience of my own where I had to walk away from something that was very, very difficult, but it changed both of us for the positive.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I mean, it took time. It was ugly, but both of us had kind of gotten into this unhealthy balance, and we became much more independent as we stood on our own because we had to. So there's power in that. When you calmly look back.
Yes, when you calmly look back and you can now have that as your, I call it my book of proof.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll reflect on these situations as I'm facing something new, because life happens. We have things that come up. And so we have to make these discerning decisions often. And I find as you approach a woman of a more interesting age, there's a lot of big decisions, as you get through your 50s and then into your 60s. Are you going to retire? What are you going to do? All these different things. A lot of big life changes that require these discerning decisions. So I'm so glad we're talking about this. You talk about awareness changes everything, and attention versus alert mode.
Yes. So when we are on alert, it's like that fight, flight, freeze. When we are always aware of everything, we can't feel our own energy in our bodies. When we're frozen, we can't feel the energy in our bodies either. But when we are present, like the example I love to use is a rabbit. When they see something around them, they freeze. And then I don't know what their internal process is, but I've watched enough of them to be aware that they scan. And then they slowly move on. I have rabbits that'll be 10 feet from my dog, gently eating the grass and the clover because they know that he's not a threat. As long as they're calm. Now, if the squirrel moves, all bets are off because that's moving. But with the rabbit just sitting there, kind of sensing out into the field, and that's what the attention is, that's what the presence is, you can discern better what's in your highest good and what's not. But when you're frozen or paralyzed, or you're in that high alert reactive phase, you can't figure it out.
Right. And I
Or
like
how you feel it either.
right. Yeah, because you're reacting. So, and what is in your highest good? Where can you show up the best? How does that affect your life? I think I'm a recovering people pleaser. And, I would always look at things on how, I've got to solve that, their emotions, or take responsibility for that, or, I have to do this for them, or whatever that looked like.
Yeah.
And not really realizing it really sometimes wasn't any good for me. And, in a lot of different ways, but yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Intuition versus relationship. A little bit about honesty. What is the truth? And when the body says yes, it's steady, certain, and undeniable. I would just really love to experience. This is the yes.
Yeah.
And is that really kind of what you have seen as people kind of embody this balanced approach to?
Yes, absolutely. The heart never lies. The heart is our most intuitive muscle.
Mm.
And as long as you're following your heart, and I don't mean it in the romantic way, I mean it in a body balance open way where you're following the signals that you're going to get in your body, that openness or that closedness. When you do that, then it's safe. You are making the right decisions. You are completely in your yes. And again, it's a yes right now. I like to look at life as like it's a mountain that we're going up in a circular fashion. And you may get to a point where you're making a similar decision from a higher perspective because you've made the choices and you've moved through things and you've got more data, some more life experiences, perhaps a different perspective. So you may make a different choice from that higher perspective. But that's the yes, making the choice in the moment and then living with it, not second guessing it. It becomes just part of who you are. And then you move on to the next choice point.
Yeah. You know, some of that is, I feel like, is a behavioral learned trait of second guessing ourselves. You know, because we've been challenged. Oh, are you sure? Is that real? You know, really? You know, all those things by maybe some people who have been narcissists or strong personalities in our life who are maybe wanting their way, or you to see their perspective or whatever. So challenging. And so I have, that is something that I have, you know, made decisions and then I come and I doubt it, you know, and I almost have to take myself back through that decision-making process. Go, no, this was the right decision, even though that this is the outcome or whatever, but that was the right decision. So I almost have to take myself back through that process that I walked through. So I know that, no, I'm right. This is good for me.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why, again, journaling is so powerful because as you write down those steps that you took, the information that helped you make that choice, you know, if you look back, because we all are human, we all are going to have those moments, no matter how experienced we are. You pulling out that notebook and saying, "Oh yeah, that's why I made the choice." And sometimes too, you can say, "Oh yeah," and then this changed. So it changed the whole equation because there was new information that came in, and or a timing or whatever it is. And so yeah, it changes it. But then you pivot. You know, that's one of my favorite words. You pivot. You just
I'm a fan of pivoting. I have pivoted many, many times. So this is what I love about our magazine is that there is little journal pages. Carolyn has some questions for you to answer, and we'll just kind of go through them kind of quick here. You talk about the head, heart, and gut alignment. When making recent decisions, how well did my mind, emotions, and intuition work together? And where did I notice tension or misalignment between thinking, feeling, and knowing? Give us an example of that, what people might kind of be looking for,
sure.
or how that might show up in their life.
Yeah, that's it. So I own a dog walking company also. And there's 20 years old this year. And when I was laid off from my corporate job in 2006, there was this, what do I do? How do I move forward? I was a single mom with 2 little kids. And it was the beginning of the recession. You know, they didn't call it that yet. That wasn't official until like 2007, but it was there.
Right.
So getting a job was really difficult. And I kept getting this, I need to do something that brings me joy and brings other people joy. You know, working in a manufacturing company brought me money. And I was actually really good at it, but it didn't bring me joy. And I loved my dog. So I combined it and I started this business. And it did not make any sense at that point. It made me seriously to start a business at the beginning of, a downturn. That was, everybody knew that at that point in time. But I just followed my gut. I followed what made my heart happy. I wanted the flexibility to be able to go see my kids at their games. And 20 years later, here we are. So,
wow.
Yeah. But
Wow.
logically, it did not make sense. So there was definitely tension around what my heart wanted me to do and what my head thought made sense.
Right, right. And sometimes it can be, little decisions too. So as I'm creating the magazine and all these things, it's been, when you step into something, it's a lot at first before you come up with systems and all that kind of stuff. But one day I sat there because my body was fatigued and my brain was also fatigued of making decisions. Because when you create graphics and stuff, you're making constant decisions. This color goes here, that, all these different things, all these little minute decisions. And I said, my brain is decision fatigued. My heart wanted to keep going because I knew I had these deadlines and all these things, and my body was like, no, you're done. You need to stop. And even though that I had that drive, girls, we can do it all. We can power through it and all these things. I actually had to stop and listen to my body and create kind of some boundaries for myself. It's like when your body gets this tired, you have to have a different balance. Otherwise, it's going to stop you.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely.
And so that's kind of something that comes to mind for that. So you talk about flow versus overthinking. And so here's your journal prompt, girls. In which situations do I tend to overthink instead of receiving clarity?
Yes. And those are often, I find, ones that have either family or friends or someone else's external expectations in them.
Oh, yes. Yes, I could totally relate with that because that is actually those relationship ones. That's what comes to mind for me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And we just pause. I need to have it like on my phone. It's before I ever answer a text or something, pause, because then you can go back to that place of just seeing what is balanced and take a look at it. Like, the logic to me, I have to use different words sometimes to just kind of remind myself of what is. And I have learned to say, go to the facts. What are the facts of this? Because otherwise I can tend to go, like I said, because the sensitivity, from that spot versus that balanced place that you're talking about. So if I remind myself to go, what is the fact? And then look at my heart. And then what is my gut telling me?
Yeah, you got it. That's exactly the formula.
Yeah, so I need to put that into practice. And that's why we have these little resources to remind us of these things. And then just listening to the body, then your capacity and awareness, there's little journal prompts around that as well. So what would you like the girls the women to get out of this little reflection, this resource, and as they walk through the other journal prompts as well?
Thank you. Self-confidence and self-trust.
Oh, self-trust. Yeah.
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 We do know what's right for us. We do know what's best for us. When we put aside all of the outside expectations, the rules and how to do something. It's not, the morality or ethics. It's not that. It's what's really in your highest good versus other people's expectations or needs from you.
Yes.
Trust your heart and then make that choice and then move on. And yeah, like I said, you might get an opportunity to do a redo. Usually for me, it's when I don't trust my intuition. All of a sudden, I'm right back in the similar, not exact same situation, and I get to redo it.
Yeah.
So it's just take action. Move forward. Take that next right step.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that just here before we close out too. So when you were talking, what came to me was that feel safe in your decision-making process.
Yeah.
So that you can feel, I made that decision and I can own it. I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, and I'm holding my heart right here. It's like, it's coming from my heart. I want to feel safe.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was something that I didn't even have words to some of this before. And so as we get older, we kind of start discovering we can apply new words that describe
Mhm.
these things. And so I just love that. So what would be a woman? So maybe she walks through your resource. What might be a next step for her?
A good next step would be to reach out to me.
Mhm.
Let's have a conversation. If there's an area that you got stuck in, allow me to support you. You know,
Oh,
I created all of this based on my very difficult journey. And one of my passions is to help people make the journey, but not have it be really difficult.
yeah.
You know, shortcuts, engineer. You like to, consolidate things down, help people move through it in an easier manner.
That
Does
just sounds like a breath of fresh air.
It doesn't have to be difficult. You know, my mom's favorite line was life is difficult from the road less traveled. She used it until it was embedded in my consciousness, and I had to do a lot of work in order to remove that voice from me. But it doesn't have to be difficult.
Mm,
We
yeah.
can choose to have it be difficult, or we can choose to reach out and get support and make it easy.
Yes. Oh, this is so good, Carolyn. Thank you. And thank you for that offer for women to connect with you as their next step. Like you said, it can be, what if it could be light and breezy? Even during transitions, challenges, what if it could be light and breezy?
Yes.
And if in that balanced self, you come to a situation with that logic, that intuition, and be able to make discerning decisions. I just love it. I want to point out too that you are part of Debbie Prediger's The Extraordinary Women's Network and her Shine Circle. And ladies, this particular issue of the magazine is dedicated to them, and it's all of these beautiful women who have come together to share those steps, those next steps for you, like making it light and breezy, making that next step and becoming more aware of where we are in our world and how we're showing up and how we can really shine, like Debbie talks about. We
Yeah.
don't want you to be she says, she doesn't want you to be the best kept secret. And I just love that when she says that, because you know what, we all have something to bring to the table, to that shine, if you will. So grateful for her and her community of women and bringing these resources to us in the Being Brave Tour magazine. So ladies, we leave you today. We love you. Give yourself a hug, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Carolyn, for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.